You have found what lights you up. I'm your host, Sunny the Life Coach, and I'm here because I see you searching for something or someone out there to help you feel better. Something to take away the pain that you're feeling, the inadequacies. I know all of the things that happen in life can leave you feeling empty. Your search is over. This podcast is all about finding your own freedom and power to love yourself enough to shine in the ways you were always meant to, the ways in which you are already fully capable of. If you're ready for some real talk, some serious truth bombs, and a few F-bombs, you are in the right place. Let's do this. Let's get lit. Hey there, welcome. I truly appreciate you pressing play on this episode. That will be released in less than 24 hours, but until just a couple of hours ago, I had no idea what I wanted to talk about today. I mean, the obvious topic would be to address the Supreme Court overturning of Roe v. Wade in the U.S. last week. I am definitely having some feelings about that. Having had 2 abortions personally that were used in emergency life-threatening scenarios. I had 2 ectopic pregnancies, and I have shared that before here. I will continue to share those experiences because what has happened in this country is that many states, including my own, have just made it illegal for a doctor to save the life of a dying patient. That is happening. It was already happening before this ruling based on the state of Texas passing Senate Bill 8 months ago. We are already hearing stories of women being airlifted to the nearest state that will give her the care that she needs as she is bleeding to death. We are already seeing posts from frantic mothers who desperately want to stick around for the children they already have, who have had pregnancies that they truly wanted, and who have miscarried, but their bodies haven't fully released everything. So on advice of their doctor, they are told to get a pill to remove the rest of what their bodies did not shed naturally, yet they are blocked from filling the prescription by the pharmacist who is afraid to be prosecuted. There are so many stories to be shared around this, but I'm just not feeling it today. And I've been practicing more and more on listening to and honoring my sacral authority that comes with my human design. My sacral says, no, this is not the place to go today. I'm not quite ready. And you may not be either. You might not yet be ready for what I have to bring on this topic. I just gave you a small taste, right? Because it's still sinking in for you. And I might be still feeling a little numb about it all. I definitely want to talk about despair and how not to fall into those dark places. I just think we all have to work through and process where we are as women in this country or childbearing humans. So if you are a longtime listener and you have grown accustomed to me tackling the hard topics and current events, I will still do that. Again, I am just not feeling that today is the day. I think there are too many variables and too much that still needs to be shaken out. What really resonated with me was a conversation that I had with my Latvian friend Liana this morning. We try to meet up every Wednesday, and it's always a great conversation. She has been on this podcast before, twice now, and will probably be back on. We just get so many ideas when we chat, and sometimes we like to share those out with the world. She was talking this morning about her youngest son who is adopted from foster care and how she had a rare moment of one-on-one time with him recently where he presented himself as a completely different person than he does when he's around his older brother, who is Leanna's biological child. These kids are 5 and 6, by the way, for frame of reference. Anyway, she was struck by how much more animated and outgoing that her youngest was when he was one-on-one with his mom versus how he typically defers to his older brother, who I gather has a gregarious personality. I asked her if she thought her youngest was being more truthful, more honest with who he really is when he is with his brother, competing for attention, or when he is simply one-on-one with her. And she had to think about that for a moment, and where we landed was that the truth is probably somewhere in between. This kid is a chameleon. He adapts to his environment. And when he's with his brother, he's not enough. He can't compete with that energy, so he just takes a back seat, which is what I imagine some of you younger siblings out there do. I don't know what that's like. I'm the eldest. I've always been the guide and the responsible one, quote unquote. So interesting about birth order, right? I'll get to that another time. That's one of 3 scenarios that I want to share with you today about being too much and never quite enough. I want you to consider these 2 very young boys who are actively learning how to navigate this life and how to adapt and adjust based on the company and the audience. We learn how to act. And man, do we learn it well when we are children. We study the environment and the people around us. We test the boundaries to learn what is acceptable to those in our sphere, our parents, teachers, coaches, siblings, and peers. Some of us can master that chameleon energy pretty quickly and efficiently. Others flounder in that environment because we are not being true to ourselves. It feels wrong, and we either land in the area of too much or not enough. And to be clear, we all find ourselves in one place or another at various stages of life, and hell, maybe even in the same day. You might flip from being too much for one person and not enough for another person. That's where that bio-individuality comes into play. We are all unique individuals who either need to find a way to embrace our uniqueness and own the fuck out of it, or spend our lives as chameleons adapting to the company we are keeping. And for many of us, I think it becomes a delicate dance between the 2. A good chunk of our lives is spent with that family unit, our family of origin, and that can often be the most difficult to navigate because we have formed emotional attachments and identity within our families before we are introduced to anything else. The second scenario that I want to share is my experience during my recent retreat to Serenbe in Chattahoochee Hills, Georgia. Again, this is an observation of others, and in my third scenario, I will share a personal experience. But I think it is the best order of things because I was really being attentive and immersive in those 2 days, and it really helped me to bring it in and put it all into perspective with my daily life. So the second scenario that I want to share with you involved being in the very unique energy of one tiny powerhouse named Monique. I just couldn't get over how big she presented herself in such a tiny package. I don't think she's even 5 feet tall, but she is bubbly and bright and full of light. Like, she's the person that would really make me feel like in my physical body, chills just being around her. I think the only reason that she carries shoes with her is when she has to put them on in public spaces. Otherwise, that girl was barefoot everywhere we went. She was barefoot in the classroom. She was barefoot in almost every photo she took, even if she was wearing a more formal outfit, because while we were getting professional photos, she was in my group. So I got to spend a lot of time with her on day 2. She's the only one who wanted to turn cartwheels in the meadow, and she happily did it at least half a dozen times to get the right shot. I was just in awe of how comfortable she was in her own skin. That girl couldn't care less what anyone thinks about her for not wearing shoes anywhere. I love it. Then I found out that she is one of 13 children, and she lands right square in the middle. She has 6 older siblings and 6 younger siblings. Now, can you imagine the level of competition that might have existed in such a large family? Maybe you know personally, I have no frame of reference whatsoever for what that might have been like, but I imagine that this super powerhouse in a small package learned early on that she had to show up big in order to be seen. I imagine she has heard many times over the years that she is too much, that she needs to bring it down a notch, turn down the volume, and I cannot adequately convey how much she inspired me, because she did not care. It was so very obvious to me that she was living in her essence, living in her design, in her own purpose, and that she had not only embraced who she is lit up by sharing all of who she is without fear of judgment. She is unconcerned, unbothered, unfuckwithable. She is Monique, unapologetically Monique. I cannot remember the last time that I met a person who gave me so many belly laughs and tears all at once. She's a lot. She might be considered too much, and she's okay with that. It was such a beautiful thing for me to witness. So that was one of many lessons that I brought back with me from my retreat experience, just observing big energy and witnessing others showing up authentically was such an honor, because honestly, everyone did that. It's just the unique and undeniable energy that came from that particular person was something to take in and consider as part of my integration. Integration is a necessary step that we often miss when we have experiences that can be truly life-changing. You can see it in the moment, but then it's over and you go back to real life, and if you don't integrate what you've just learned into your everyday, what has happened merely becomes a memory and nothing more. You remain unchanged. I had already decided that I was going to be changed from this experience. And I had already decided before I even went there that I was going to show up as just a little bit too much. I didn't want the subtle streaks of magenta in my hair. I wanted it to be vibrant. I wanted my hair to pop. I wanted to be seen, and I wanted to be remembered. That's a bit different than past versions of myself. Past versions of Sunny wanted to blend in, to have just the right amount of my own personal magic, but you had to get to know me first because I was just ordinary. That's how I wanted to be. I would wear my hair the way everyone else was wearing it and would do the best I could to conform and fit in, much like Leanna's youngest son is doing currently. So that's one way that I was willing to step out of my comfort zone, show up big and bold, and an hour late on the first day, because it's really hard for me to sleep well in hotels. But my best integration experience came after I returned home to my normal life, because that's how this is supposed to work, right? Here's where I get to share what it's like working my new part-time gig at the local florist. Y'all, I love that place, and I cannot for the life of me understand why I didn't reach out years ago. You see, I'm a bit of a gregarious personality myself. I love being in the presence of other humans. And for the past few years, I have been working from home and conducting sessions and meetings on Zoom, and it's just not the same. Now, my husband has been working from home since spring of 2020, and he absolutely loves it. He doesn't want to be around people, ever. I don't even know if he wants to be around me. That's the difference in our personalities. Being in the presence of others lights me up. It charges me. For him, it's a depletion of energy. He is most content when he is alone and free of obligations. Again, we are all unique, and this absolute truth is going to play an important role in tying this all together. Okay, the florist. I have been there for about 6 weeks now, and I just work 2 days per week, but those 2 days are a way for me to get out of the house, shake things up, and experience the energetic hits from other humans. Now, as some of you may be aware, I grew up in a florist. My dad owned a florist, first in eastern Kentucky, and then he had a larger one in Lexington when we moved there. Starting as a preteen, I have prepped the flowers, answered phones, took the orders, put together bud vases, made deliveries. Before GPS existed, you all, paper maps is how I learned my way around a new city. And I have tied so many bows that my hands have cramped, especially around Valentine's Day and Mother's Day. So I get the environment, and I am here for it. Never thought I would return to it. But it turns out that it is exactly the soul injection that I needed. Full circle, returning to the scene. I didn't realize how much I missed it. It reconnects me to my dad, and most importantly, it reconnects me to myself. One of the fun things about starting a new job with people who don't know you is that it gives you an opportunity to reinvent yourself. I had only worked a few days before the retreat, and when I came back, I had decided that I was going to show up big and just the way that I wanted to. I was going to be unapologetically me. I was going to be maybe too much for some people, and that was going to be okay. So one day we were in a lull, and I was tying bows to kill time, and I still shock myself with my willingness to volunteer to tie bows, considering how much I used to hate it because it was a chore and it made my hands cramp. And my coworker, who has been training me the most, said, "Sonny, I need to tell you something." "Yeah?" She said, "I love your bows. They are beautiful, but..." You already know it's going south when there's a but. She said, "How many loops are you doing?" I said, 6 per side. She said, "Yes, and you have a center loop, which I never do also. So let's take that down to 5 and make them smaller. The focal point should be on the product, not the bow." Huh? Okay. That's not how I was raised, but okay. This isn't about me recreating the environment I know. She's been with this florist from inception, which is 30 years. So she knows what this place needs. I get it. What she was really saying in a low-key way was that I was being too much with my bow tying. And here's the thing, you all. I wasn't even the least bit offended. Now, the old version of me would have been. She would have stewed and thought, "How dare you criticize my work? It's fucking perfect." But this version of me was just like, "Oh, I'm too much for you? Okay, I'll adjust. I can be a chameleon." In this scenario, we are talking about adjusting our behaviors in a workplace, which is something that we find ourselves doing. We all do that. It's necessary. What I want you to take away from this is that not only did I not feel offended by her direction, I was like cool with it. I was cool with her asking me to bring it down a notch, just one notch, just let go of 2 of the loops and make them smaller overall. And I could have protested or countered and said, "This is just the way I make bows." Or I could have gone full on passive aggressive and said, I just won't do bows at all anymore. But that would crush my soul. So that's not an option. Although I have been known to cut my nose off to spite my face in the past, I'm sure we've all done that a time or 65. What I did in that moment of feedback was that I did not take it personally. This wasn't an admonishment of me as a human, or even of my skills. It wasn't really an admonishment at all. It was just a guidance, a preference. And here's where seeking first to understand really comes into play. We talked later about where she was coming from, and she explained that during a brief period where she wasn't working at this particular shop, she was working floral departments in big box stores like Sam's Club or Walmart. I'm not even sure those are the stores she mentioned, but we're just going to go with those similar stores, right? She explained that the product was so inferior, everyone would tie big bows to cover it up. So the focal point was the bow, not the product. Now she's back home in this premium florist. She cares deeply about their reputation, and I sure don't want to give anyone the flavor of a Sam's or a Walmart. So, there it is. Seek first to understand, then to be understood, in my opinion, is one of the greatest 7 habits. Being able to accept constructive criticism without turning it into a personal attack is absolutely necessary when you are willing to step into your version of too much. But remember, the title of this episode is Too Much and Never Enough. As I've mentioned, we've pretty much all been on one or the other at one point or another. And sometimes we can swing between the two multiple times in the same 24 hours. Why is that? Because we have all learned how to be chameleons. We have learned how to adjust our approach and present ourselves differently depending on the audience. Because we recognize that every human that we interact with is unique in their own right. Yet where we most often fail is the recognition and embracing of our own individuality and having our own back. We are just constantly so worried about what everyone else might think that we hold ourselves back. And that, my friends, is the tragedy. As Rumi says, find the sweetness in your own heart, then you may find the sweetness in every heart. I love this quote for this particular topic as it serves as a reminder for me that every single person that I meet does have a sweetness in their heart. They do. They may not show it to you readily, but they have it. We were all born with it. I believe that. And I think that I am indeed finding that sweetness in my own heart because it has become so much easier for me to see it in others. That's what this particular quote means to me. It's not necessarily about me or you being too much or not enough at the core of our being. That's what I've largely misunderstood for a majority of my life. I kept trying to morph into whomever someone wanted me to be instead of being true to myself and authentically me. What this is really about is having the understanding and awareness that every other person that you meet is receiving whatever gifts that you have to offer through their own lens. Maybe your vibrant energy reminds them of someone that they had a conflict with in the past. Who knows? Whatever the reason, it is personal to them, and it is not about you. We are all more than enough, and no one is really too much. It is all in the eye of the beholder, right? Please remember this as you continue to navigate this complicated life. If a 5-year-old child can already see and practice how to be a chameleon, how long might you have been doing the same thing? How much of your life has been spent in trying to posture and please everyone else around you? If a peer of mine who shows up in a teeny tiny package as an unapologetic ball of energy how hard would it be for you to embrace such an aspect of yourself, even just a little bit more than you already are? And if a coworker of mine has an opinion on my bow tying skills based on her own experiences, does that mean either of us are wrong? No, it's just an opinion, a guidance, an offer to help me succeed in this environment. Am I too much? Oh, I'm sure that I am for some people. The question is, am I too much for you? One way that you can find out is by getting on my schedule for a one-on-one conversation, as I share with you every week, and you can find that link in show notes. Another way that you can get to know me just a little better if you're not quite ready for a conversation is to join my new Facebook group, What Lights You Up. It is a private space where we can interact with one another daily about the very topics that I am discussing here. I am super excited to kick this off. It is still within its first 24 hours as I am recording this, so brand new. Get in on the ground floor. We'd love to have you there. Even in the face of dark times, I am continuing to explore new and different ways to deepen our connection so that we can all light up and shine on.